So thank you very much. I'm really proud to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about our roadmap for a trusted and a responsible and an inclusive cloud. We really live in an amazing time. The technology is changing at a very breathtaking speed, and we realize and we experience that every day. The advances in medicine and the advances in the productivity increased our life expectancy and also lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty already. The ability of people to connect with each other and to share and download information all the time is at the same time being taken for granted pretty much. Now with cloud computing we arrived at a new era with even more profound transformation. A new generation of technology is delivering now new ways to expand economic opportunity and address some of the humanity's biggest issues. But cloud also raises important questions and concerns such as privacy, security, and safety of people, and of course, job safety. So at Microsoft, we fundamentally believe and we're optimistic about a future in the cloud. I brought with me a pair of two photos. Actually, you see the Flatiron building in New York City at that first picture. It has been taken at the beginning of the 20th century, 1905, and you see a lot of horses running around there. So the primary mode of transportation at that time in 1905 was horses. If we go to the second picture, pretty much the same perspective, but 2 decades later, automobiles fill the street. There are no more horses, and in between is a profound area of transformation. At the beginning of the 20th century, it took more than 100,000 horses to keep New York going. 100,000 horses running around in the city to keep people going in New York City. Along with that, thousands of people work to drive them, work to feed them, and also work to clean up the mess that the horses left behind. Then, as the hay-fed horsepower gave way to oil-fueled horsepower, the world changed dramatically, not only in New York City. Within a quarter of a century, an entire industry that was built on horses completely disappeared. A society that was now moving on with the speed of cars and no longer to the trot of horses was now faced with enormous challenges how to keep up with the law. At the same time, they had enormous new opportunities. They could deliver much faster. They could have greater distances. The history of human progress is marked by a small handful of industrial revolutions like this, each of them fueled by key inventions. So the first industrial revolution was powered by the steam engine. The second one, and that's the one that we saw, which was the transition from horses to automobiles, was built on the internal combustion engine and the electric power plants. Looking at the third industrial revolution, this was made possible by the microprocessor. And today, we stand at the beginning of a new era of technology, and we're pretty much at the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution. And at the heart of this transformation is cloud computing. Cloud computing is built on hundreds of data centers running tens of millions of processes that together have the power to store and process an unprecedented amount of data. We never had that in human history before. At the same time, we have, not at the same time, but resulting out of that, we have enormous benefits. So just think about eliminating poverty, think about eradicating diseases, and solving the climate changes. In short, technology is disrupting everything again. It was like with the horses, and the cloud will disrupt again, and does already. So if we look at some of the examples, and we need the next slide please, at some of the examples where we have already disruptions, then you may know many, or at least some of them. So if we look at Netflix, they completely changed the way how we look at the TV and how we watch TV, how we watch content on the TV. Uber, company that does not own a single car, has completely disrupted the transportation market and invented a completely new business model. Pretty much the same like Uber on the transportation area is Airbnb on the hotel service. Again, they don't own any hotel. They just act as an intermediary and have influenced the life of many of us quite tremendously. But there's also another great example that happened quite recently at Columbia University in Washington. So a graduate student, and together with two Microsoft researchers, published a study that described how they analyzed the queries from the search engine to identify people who have pancreatic cancer before they were even diagnosed with them. So pancreatic cancer has extremely low survival rates. Only 3% of patients live longer than 5 years. And by this research, they could double that survival rate. So what they actually did, they were looking at the search queries and trying to combine them and trying to dig out the symptoms that lead to pancreatic cancer and trying to identify those people well in advance. Of course, there are even more dramatic examples of cloud-driven transformation, and we already talked about Uber, and we already talked about Airbnb. And inside the technology industry and technology-affine people like we are, there are a lot of other great examples, and there is a high level of enthusiasm and pretty optimistic view into the future. But outside of that industry and outside of the big capitals of this world, there may be people that think we are heading into a somehow darker future. A future that will drive millions of people out of workforce, out of the automation process. Income equality is a big issue, and public safety and personal privacy are permanently challenged by different directions. All of that is completely understandable, and I don't want to have that pink glasses on my eyes and just saying everything is positive. So we need to acknowledge this. In particular, if we look at the terroristic acts in Brussels and Paris and Orlando and elsewhere, they were all carried out by the use of technology. Criminals have hacked into system, have stolen millions and millions of credit card details. And teachers and parents must worry about kids being bullied on social media. And the truth is also that some people in the future will also lose their job to robots. Now, at a time when technology-driven transformation appeared to be inevitable, we have an opportunity, but we also have a responsibility to acknowledge the uncertainty that people face. And we must work together to create a future in which the benefits of cloud computing are universally accessible and equitably shared. So, for this to be the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution, we must build a cloud for the global good. It's a task that will take a framework of laws and agreements by the governments, but those laws and agreements need to be shaped by a very open and very lively discussion by all the people that are involved in the game, all the stakeholders, which is citizens, which is associations, which is companies, which is individuals. It's everyone. So we need to engage in this discussion. To build a cloud for global good, first we must have a trusted cloud. Around the world, people truly believe, for right reasons, that in the cloud they also want to have the same protection that they have with their information on paper. The foundation for our work to earn trust from these people is that we need to commit to privacy, safety, compliance, and transparency. This is why we are standing up for privacy and transparency on behalf of our customers. For example, Microsoft in the US had a lawsuit against the US government, which was trying to ask for data which was stored on Microsoft servers but outside of the US. And we won that battle in the second instant already. So this is one of the examples that we really fight for those privacy rights of our people. But also we need policies that protect people from crime and terrorism and from unwarranted intrusions by government and businesses. Government is pretty interested in data and always want to look into it, which you may have seen the Yahoo example. So it's something that we definitely don't want to do and that we will never allow. And finally, we also need to make sure that there is a free flow of information. But a cloud for global good must also be a responsible cloud. We believe that it requires, on one hand, a framework of laws and policies from governments, but we also need the commitments from big companies like Microsoft and others to protect people from harm and abuse that they may be faced in the cloud. We also need to make sure that human rights are preserved in the cloud. Beside that, we truly believe that this requires a sustainable environmental practice to keep the cloud going. A decade from now, data centers will consume as much electricity as a medium-sized nation. This is why we, as Microsoft, made a commitment to be transparent about our energy use and invest in our data center efficiency and even more in renewable energy every year. Again, we cannot do this alone. And as responsible participants in the cloud, we ask governments and other stakeholders to participate in those efforts and use clean energy as a matter of government policy. And third, we need an inclusive cloud. In a world where technology is driving so rapidly change, we need to make sure that the disruption that is happening also creates opportunity. So this can only be created by an inclusive cloud, which is available to everyone, irrespective of his age, of his gender, of his ability, and his income. This is probably one of the defining issues of our time. The capabilities of the cloud must be accessible to every business, small and large, old and new, irrespective of what they do. So every company has the opportunity to drive growth and create new jobs. At the same time, we need to make sure that the next generation really has the skills and the knowledge to do those jobs that are required. In fact, as we move forward, we also need to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind. So that this applies to all the people out there. Some people with disabilities, people are less skilled, people are more skilled. We need to make sure that everyone has the possibility to follow, everyone has access to the cloud, and we don't need any one of those behind. And this is something that we can only achieve by a policy framework. If we look at the Flatiron building today, from pretty much the same perspective as from the other two pictures, there are striking similarities and some interesting differences. Many of the buildings are still there, but we see a little bit more people and we see more traffic, and the traffic has pretty much changed. There are a lot of cars, high-speed cars driving around, rush hour probably even more. What I wonder is what this intersection will look like in 20 years.